I do need a lot of watching.
But I think that because of Mike Lavini's delay, I think maybe we should do the switch up 2 and 1. Then that way we can.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Sounds great. And then if there's any public comment right at the beginning.
Okay. You guys ready? Yeah. Okay. All right. Welcome everyone to the bond committee meeting this evening. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Should we have somebody take a roll call vote? Or take a roll call?
Sure. I can do that.
You want to do that for us?
Sure.
Dr. Ella?
Mr. Conley? Here. Mr. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Stahl?
Present.
Mr. Meyer?
Here.
Dr. Krebs?
Here.
Just great.
Here.
All right. Thank you all for being here.
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. This is the scheduled bond meeting, committee of the whole meeting of the board. We have some various items to discuss this evening. 2 of the primary items that are on the agenda to be discussed are the proposed or potential Spencer parking lot replacement and reconfiguration, and in addition, a discussion on a proposed new road on site on the Horning multi-campus. We had originally discussed this a couple of meetings ago. It was pushed to this meeting so that our traffic engineer could have a further discussion about this. Mr. Lavity, the traffic engineer, he is actually en route from Novi, but there was apparently an accident on 96, and so he's delayed a little bit, and apparently will be here about 5:10. So what I would suggest is we switch, as part of our informal agenda that we had, that Dr. Alba prepared, we were going to discuss those items first. I would suggest that we push those back until Mr. Lavity gets here to obviously give him the opportunity to further discuss those issues and to answer any questions that we have. So I would say that we'll move forward into the item number 2, the floor action, which was the robotics room location. So this item is a follow-up. Do you want to talk about to address Dr. Alba? This was an issue that we discussed at the last meeting in conjunction with the question of whether the current location for the TIPS program is relocated to what is the current engineering room that's going to be vacated with the relocation of the engineering program into the STEAM Center. And the questions that were discussed as part of that potential relocation was whether the TIPS room stay in its current location and the robotics team be relocated into the what is the current Health Ops room, which will be vacated when the Health Ops room moves to its new location. Or alternatively, whether the TIPS program is moved to Mr. Jordan's existing engineering program, and the robotics program then be moved into the existing TIPS room. So those were the 2 alternatives. We had discussion last time about what the thoughts were of the members. We got the administration's recommendation. The questions that came up and the request that was made was to meet with the staff, specifically Ms. Reneker, Mr. Dupay, who run the TIPS program, and ask them, if you have the option and the district supports providing you with additional funding and whatever improvements to the program that you would like to see happen, would you like to see the program move to Mr. Jordan's existing room with whatever enhancements the district may support, or alternatively, would you prefer to stay in your current location. And again, if there are improvements to either the programming or the infrastructure, the facility, which of those two alternatives that would you prefer and support? Mr. Stahl and I met with Ms. Reniker and Mr. Dupay. They were obviously aware of the fact that we had that discussion at that board meeting, and we asked them those questions, and they unequivocally shared with Mr. Stahl and I that they want to stay in their current location. They believe the facility that they have currently is excellent for the program. They actually have just recently received a grant approval for an independent type living facility to be built out in the space that's immediately adjacent to their tips room, with basically the space between the tips room and the auto lab. And basically for all the reasons that were explained by Dr. Outlaw in the administration's recommendation, they fully supported staying in their current location and said, to the extent that the district does support any additional funding for programming or facility improvements, which as of right now, they didn't have any specific requests because they did just receive the grant, their ideal location would be to stay where they are. So that was what they both informed Mr. Stahl and I, and so that's where we are on that. So I know that we have to, a decision has to be made, so, and to close the loop on this, because it's obviously also part of the question regarding moving forward on the remaining funds of the bond. If the TIPS room were going to be relocated to the engineering room, there would be, there would need to be obviously an analysis done of the funding that would be needed to be allocated to make the necessary changes to that room. And so obviously we're at a point now where we need to, as a board, provide the direction to the administration as to which of those two directions we're going to proceed. So would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that, that we keep the TIPS room in the current location, and the current health ops room can be used for robotics. Is that what we're thinking? Or do we not need to include that part of it?
I think the robotics is the key part of it, is that would be the
Is it the
space.
current health ops room, or?
It would be the current health ops. Yeah, there's the two options. Either robotics would move to the TIPS room, which we have another discussion about TIPS, or robotics goes to the current health ops room. And so those are the two.
So I'll make the motion that the TIPS stays in the current room and robotics moves to the current health ops room.
Support. All right, so motion by Dr. Krebs, support by Ms. Reed. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
That passes 5-1. Mr. Levity is still not here, so let's move to item number 3, which is the budget update. Mr. Engleter, if you want to just touch on.
I just wanted, it was just to give you guys an update of where you're at. Your unallocated contingency right now, it's sitting at $3.7 million, just over that. Now that doesn't include if you make any decisions about Spencer or the Maltby Road. So obviously there's some dollars in there that may be spent that would bring this down if you guys just choose to go forward with those. So.
And does that, the number that $3,764,000, does that already include any monies that have been allocated for the estimate for the new health ops?
It has the original estimates, yes, it has for the health ops that we did an estimate 3-4 months ago, I think, on some preliminary ones. That's what I'm carrying right now. We just got a new set of drawings, and we're getting subcontractor pricing, which is going to be better than the estimate, and we should have that by the end of this week. So you do have money set aside for those two items, for the health ops and for the STEAM Center at Scranton.
Okay.
That includes dollars for those two.
Bernie, are you carrying anything for equipment in the updated health ops room?
No.
Okay.
No equipment.
That, just a reminder to the board, that was a discussion when you originally decided to move forward with the health ops, that there was probably $250,000 worth of equipment that also went along with that renovation outside of the construction cost itself.
And just as a clarification on that, Mike, is there any existing allotment for equipment in the budget, in the bond budget?
No.
So all of that equipment number, whatever it ends up being, will be the contingency.
Contingency related, yeah.
But that would come out of the technology side of the bond, right?
It doesn't, either way, it doesn't really matter.
Is
I'd
this,
say most of it's not technology related though.
is this equipment, or the contingency at 3.7, is that including the technology bond as well?
No.
What's in the technology?
Technology piece, in the calculation of Bernie's contingency, the technology piece just shows is all allocated.
Okay,
So that's all been accounted for and coming to this number.
okay.
What about the STEAM Center at Scranton? So have we, I heard that we factored in some of the estimates that, for the work that we've already talked about, but we're gonna talk about more work for Scranton. So is there,
We have we have a number in the budget right now for the design to change the art room to the STEAM, and then renovate what was gonna be the STEAM for the art room that's in there. And that's also, we're also getting subcontractor numbers, pricing by the end of this week. So we'll have an idea of whether we're above or below those budgets.
So the same as the health ops, Bernie's still carrying the numbers that they originally had that you saw the first time, but there have been updates to the drawings, so there'll be some changes coming, but they're roughly.
Well, I think you're building into those estimates some possibilities, because we're looking at new cabinets or not, that kind of stuff, new flooring not, so we'll be able to kind of pick and choose to keep it where we need it, is my understanding. Is that correct?
Yes, the drawings that we have the new flooring and the new cabinets and all that. And once we get the pricing by the end of the week, we want to look at making some value engineering decisions and making some changes, we can do that.
what about equipment for that space? Would any equipment or technology that you want to put in Scranton, is that contingency dollars that are not yet?
I'm not aware of any equipment needs.
There's a pretty big list. Dr. Darga's got the equipment list. It's not like the kind of stuff we're talking about at the high school. But there's, we're replacing all the equipment in the, we'll call it hands-on area, which would be kind of the wood shop metal area. And then a couple of CNC machine center and some 3D printers, some things like that, but not super high.
No, but that's not insubstantial. I mean, those are dollars that you can't track of, right?
They're smaller, right? But Dr. Darga's got the work list, and we worked off it the other day and kind of looked at it. It's not enough to, tip you over, but it's enough to know that we have to approve it. So it's in the works. So if you want to,
I haven't seen it yet, but I have a
Right.
meeting with Darga tomorrow. So.
Jim and I discussed a little bit, and obviously you guys are following his wisdom on these things, and I threw it back a couple ideas, and I think he's got a plan. And I think he'll bring us a good proposal that'll get Scranton where it needs to be to start. And then we'll probably want to add to it down the road, but it'll be a starting point.
I'm going to call on Mike Labadie if it's okay with you. Just step over there.
And then, what about any loose ends relative to the high school STEAM Center? When I say loose ends, I know that at one point there was a discussion about sort of the 3D illumination, that the cost of which weren't really certain and was going to be investigated further. I mean, where are we? Do we have any, any open items that we're still potentially considering?
I don't think so. I think we set a budget and they worked within the budget for like the art and stuff.
This, the high school STEAM Center?
Yes.
Because we had, at one point, we had the conversation,
Yep.
I don't know, it's probably been 2 or 3 months ago now, about adding, it was the aluminum, it was a 3D.
Oh, 3D,
graphics.
okay.
Yeah, for the wall, And I know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's at.
No, I think that's underway. The board gave kind of a number and
We gave them a number, a dollar amount, and they're working within that. The only thing I've got a small issue with on that is that we don't have 2 bids on it. They single sourced it. And I asked for, at the time when it was going on, that we bid it. So, and I guess, Michael, we don't have to bid it. It's $55,000. So.
I mean, if you looked at individual pieces of art, I have a feeling it's not $26,000 each. So
It's not. No, for sure it's not.
I'm guessing we can probably make an argument around bidding it, considering the fact that it's individual pieces.
Well,
Mike, is there any reason, why not? We're not in a hurry, right? If it goes over beyond, whenever it comes, if it gets installed at this point, right?
I think it's good practice to have a couple bids.
Why not?
We can,
There's at least 3 companies in the area that could possibly bid on it.
yeah, to be honest, I don't know what's entailed, but it can be put out to bid.
All right. Anybody else have any questions, comments about the overall budget update?
I'm a little bit. What'll happen is the robotics team has moved into the STEAM Center for temporary quarters. They're in the one lab that's unused downstairs. So they'll get moved again when the health occupations room opens up. But you may want to put into the thinking cap as a renovation to that room for the long-term engineering aspect of it instead of the other. As you guys know, I don't support the tips being left there, and the purpose is, and the reason I don't support it, so for the record, is that tips was moved down there not because it was an ideal place for them to go. Okay? They were moved down there because they didn't have another place to go. So we renovated the room to fit them in there. I believe you can take Jordan's classroom and build it into a tips room, and where it's more built design intent, just like the health ox lab. Now, the teachers have said that's not necessary, and everybody in administration has said the same thing. Well, I would still suggest the other. I think they're incorrect. So as we move forward with robotics and taking in the industrial wing of the school and having to modify other classrooms to suit an engineering level classroom, they don't have it. We're putting them in a low level classroom with a ceiling height of 9 feet or 8 feet. And it doesn't fit an engineering concept classroom. So put that on the bucket list. Is revamping.
John, if I may, the only thing I'm going to say to that is, I respect the robotics.
Sure. It's not just robotics, so it's a future build of what we're thinking.
Right. I just look at it, I do tend to look at it like this. There's still a club. It's not in our academics. It's not a class that we teach. So if you open that floodgate, then are you going to give the chess players their own room? Because that's a club. You can go on and on and on with this. We have to be careful about those kind of things. All of a sudden, we're spending millions of dollars for things that we don't have control over.
But we do. But we do have control. And when you have 80 students involved, it's more of a football team than a club. So, and when that's the football team that throws the football and makes that child as successful as the team captain that threw the football and threw the touchdown pass on the football field, you're missing the point. So we're in a position to either do that or not do it. And at this point, they've been, sent down the road a couple different times, and they had to stand in the doorway to stop that from happening. And you're all aware of that. So we're not sending them down the road. We're taking care of them. We're giving them a classroom that they can work in. But remember the development ideas. This is not really just a club. This is really 80 students engaged in high-level academics that grew to a point of the top academic competition in the country, actually in the world, worldwide, and to win it. Now, this is no joke. This is a serious opportunity for these kids. So we're in a position to foster that and continue to help them build on what they learned and move forward. Or we're in a position to, say that. And again, as you know, the TIPS program as it sits today had a lot of myself and other board members involved in getting it built to the level it's at, because we saw the need in there and made sure it happened. So at no point would we say we should take anything away from that. We're saying add to it. That's just the vision. And I just want you guys to keep in mind that those 80 students to be in the near future again, remember it was wound down to 2 during COVID, and they're back up to 30 plus, I think, maybe 40. And they were just left to wander during COVID. That can't happen again. They have to have a place to put on their high-level academic competition and represent our school system. So just remember that, and we'll balance it out. It'll get there, but their classroom will need to be renovated. And heck, maybe we'll add another section on, another story onto it. Never know. Okay, it's that important. And as we look at the STEAM Center as its whole operation, and for them to be in there right now, I think it's great they're in there. We're not gonna have another classroom scheduled for it. They can use it for the next year. And that's great. But they still have to kind of maneuver around and figure out how they're gonna manage, because they can't just take over the open area that's, would want their project set up in it. And like I said, it's not just robotics. It's really the theory of the whole envelope of what surrounds it. That's what this is about. So I think it's bigger picture, and we are in absolute need of these programs for students, for health and wellness and everything combined. So I look forward to your support as we need to renovate the next room. All right.
All right. So we will now return back to the first item on our agenda, which is the discussion of the potential Spencer parking lot replacement improvements and the Corning Mulvey Road. And we have asked Mr. Labadie, who has joined us. Thank you for being here.
I'm happy to be here, let me tell you.
And
Not fun out there.
I apologize to hear, sorry to hear that it was a little treacherous driving, getting here, but we made it here safe.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm
Good.
Sorry, I'm very sorry I'm late, but it's, a couple other folks had bigger problems than I did out there, so I'm good.
No worries. So as you know, you were asked to take a look at these two sites, and you studied the traffic congestion issues that we are experiencing. We are at a point in the planning process where we had previously approved as part of the bond application, or the voters had approved as part of the bond allocation, a specified amount of money for the parking lot replacement, resurfacing of talking about Spencer now. But given the fact that that site experiences a significant amount of traffic problems that create safety issues, and given the fact that we have some additional contingency dollars that potentially could be used to enhance the work that may be done at the Spencer lot to improve the traffic circulation, try to remove as much traffic as possible off the road during the peak hours. We obviously asked you to take a look at what potential improvements could be made, and then what tangible effects on the traffic congestion and circulation those improvements would have. At our last meeting, we talked about these proposed improvements. There were some questions raised that really were related to how, if it's a considerable amount of money that would be allocated above what was originally budgeted just for the asphalt replacement and really the replacement of the existing infrastructure without making any improvements to further mitigate the traffic congestion. So I think from the questions that were raised at the last meeting, Mr. Labadie, what we're trying to understand is if we're going to approve spending this additional amount of money beyond what was originally budgeted in order to make these changes to the design and to improve the actual layout, what effect is that going to have? Are we going to really see significant improvement particularly during the peak hours, or is it going to have, on the other hand, a de minimis or relatively minor improvement that, while it may be something, any improvement is great improvement, but when we have to look at the cost of whether we're going to bite that bullet, we have to obviously make that cost benefit analysis. And frankly, I think we're looking to you to try to walk us through that and enlighten us on what that cost benefit analysis looks like.
Personally, I think it's a great idea. No, just kidding. The numbers that are shown on the agenda, those are the differences.
Yes, correct.
So you originally budgeted 544. Okay.
That was actually a bond budget number. That's not necessarily the actual cost.
Right,
Correct.
Just so, because it probably increased from the bond budget being done.
right, that
We
was,
actually, when we bid out the resurfacing of Spencer, it was like 327.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't.
So it was under budget. It was
Good,
under the
okay.
bond budget to actually do the original design.
Resurfacing.
Okay, so-
Which for the record was just the resurfacing of the east lot.
Correct.
That's how it was.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not, I mean, it's more than double this, or not
Well,
quite.
the question is, how much impact is it going to be? The new design, how much
I got it.
impact is it going to be on the
understand. I'm
traffic
just trying
flow?
to-
Separate
Trying to
from
figure
the,
out whether, you said something about cost benefit, I'm just trying to think, double the price, you get double the.
like, how much benefit are you going
Right.
to see
Okay, the
in the traffic
benefit-
flow?
Just so you know, the kind of the challenges that you have, which I don't know if I need to tell you what they are or not, but if you do, let's just talk about it a little bit. The way it works today, the driveways conflict with each other, and the parking lot's not large enough to accommodate all the parents that want to come in there to pick up their kids. Now, I don't know if prior to the design that's out there now, and probably was not, the students where the parents parked and walked in, got their kid with, I'm Johnny, number 12, however they do that with their, I don't think they did that back then, but they do it now, and there's not enough parking. And so they're parking out on the grass, and they're doing a lot of different things out there that lead to the problem too, because your cars are pulling in and out, and not on and off the grass. They're blocking people going in and out. It's just not the way it's supposed to go. So if you look at the concept that we came up with, there's an in and an out. So they're not going to conflict with each other nearly as much. You might still, just so you know, you might still have some congestion for the eastbound left turn into the east driveway because you don't have a center lane for left turns or a passing lane out there, which is not your thing to do necessarily, but if you were, a shopping center developer, you'd have to put it in because you would have traffic demand sufficient enough to warrant doing it. Nonetheless, the congestion is not going to be necessarily a problem for your operation, I don't think. But you'll gain a lot more parking spaces, or several more parking spaces anyway. And
how many parking spaces?
yeah, I think
There's 157 on the original, on the lot as it stands today, that's split obviously between the parent drop-off loop and subsidiary loop. So there's like 40 spaces in the bus drop-off loop, so the remainder 110 spaces, give or take, are in the parent drop-off loop. The proposed concept that we kind of laid out with, based on the recommendations, had about 170, 180 parking spaces, give or take. We looked at angled parking, which is better for traffic flow, but you lose spaces just in the inefficiency of the layouts because you just take up more space. So depending on if it's desired, we can look at other options to gain additional spaces, but you're looking at like 15 to 20 more spaces total.
We're only giving you 20 spaces, and we've got about 40 to 50 cars that park on the grass and out on the street.
okay,
Just
so
so everybody knows.
If I could, this is very similar to what we had before the last time when we changed it. And I'm not an expert in the field, so I appreciate everything you're saying. There's a couple of things that just I don't think there's any way we can really do anything unless we widen that road. Honestly, that's gonna be, if you can get a turn lane in that road, I think we'd see a lot of improvement. I mean, I don't think anybody would argue that. If we could get the road widened, and we had turn lanes and one in the center, two on the sides, it would help. My concern is, I understand the traffic flow, I think I'm following this, that left lane that goes around on this side of the school, so this side of the buses, is that parents driving through that lane beyond, going past the buses during drop off?
yes, you can if they want to.
Right. That kind of concerns me because Sometimes little kids get out and run through the buses.
Well,
That's my biggest concern with this. And my personal opinion, and that's all it is, not based on any knowledge of traffic. I don't know what we spent in that last bond, but it had to have been more than $1 million to do what we did. We separated the bus lane, put in a new grant, it had to be a couple $1 million, I can't remember the figures. I think we're gonna spend a lot of money, we're gonna get very little difference, because the road is the road. I just would like to entertain an idea of what would it cost us? It couldn't be $1 million a year to have traffic control out there, stop traffic and let people in and out. I think that's a safer way.
that's, why don't we get through the whole thing?
You got it, I apologize.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I respectfully disagree with you to some
Fair
extent, so let's kind of finish that.
Okay.
So parking was an issue. You have the ability even to expand it if you want to. I'm not 100% sure how long this process of every parent getting out and going and picking up their kid and getting back, I don't know how long that's gonna last. But the parent pickup and drop off, I don't know, do you have this picture? Yeah.
That's- Yep, that's what they're looking at right now. Yep.
Okay, look at that one. It's just a graphic that we put together, not the design that the other guys put together. But the idea that it's very traditional to have a parent come in, drop their kid off, get out the passenger side door, and when you do that, you move out and move into the left lane and you go out. And so you have a big, long lane there where parents can do that. That's very traditional. That's been going on for 100 years. That's the way schools have been working. The idea that we now do it differently and have, parents walk into the room, school is, I don't know if that's COVID related or where some of that came from, but I've seen some schools do that. It's not as though it's really odd, but I don't think, for example, Horning and Mulpey, I don't think that goes on there. I think kids come out. So I think it might be a school preference. It might be, I'm not sure where that whole thing came from. But the layout that you have there is the parent pulls up next to the curb and they don't wait to get to the front door. The idea is to pull in, be careful, let Junior out, and the other car pulls in or they move up. So
If I could just interrupt, I mean, that's definitely the way things work in the morning at most of our elementary schools. There will be parents that drop off, but not all elementary schoolers are capable of getting themselves out of the car. So those folks are parking and walking their child up to the door.
Right.
I think our biggest traffic problem to solve at Spencer, speaking as a former Spencer parent, is that afternoon pickup. Because you have to park. I can't wait in line and pick Johnny up on the sidewalk. I have to park my car and walk up to the door to make sure that the child is going home with the right person. That's where your parking issue is. It's not, in the mornings, our problem on Spencer Road is the road. In the afternoons, it's the parking.
Parking is the same situation. You go in, you show your number, you go in the gymnasium, you pick up your child, and you leave. So it is kind of a common practice here, and you gotta show your number to make sure they're going home with the right person.
Well, right. Yeah.
And that's,
Okay, so-
that's pre-COVID, and that's like the
Yeah,
new
yeah,
things,
that's for all.
particularly with the littles. That's
Yeah.
pretty common.
From the traffic standpoint though, that circulation, you could bring the buses further down. I don't think you should necessarily, the idea of the buses over on that side is just, that's a good place for them. You can move them down, but every place, in the other schools I've seen, they have teachers or a principal or somebody make sure that the kids that go to the buses go that way and they get on the bus, that they know what bus to get on. So this is another common setup here. If we can't keep them out of that drive lane, then we're not doing something quite right. But nonetheless, the idea here was to reduce the congestion by making the flow better and providing parking to get people off the streets. And whether you want to go in and get your kid or whether you want to park and go get, or pull up to the curb and get your kid, either one. That's kind of the way this would go. It doesn't always work. My kids went to Troy High, and high school kids can't figure out how to get out of the car except at the front door. I mean, it's kind of crazy. But other places I've worked, I've seen a lot of things where this has worked just fine. The elementary school that my kids went to, the elementary parents could figure it out, but the high school kids can't. So high school parents, I say. So this operation is good. I was just trying to max out the operation here. And if you get rid of the two-way driveways, they'll get out, it'll improve. If there's pretty good gaps in westbound traffic, left turns in would be pretty easy. Left and rights would be working out just fine, maybe. The concern that I have, if there's one for, you're talking about a passing lane or building the right, you really have the opportunity to kind of extend it. It wouldn't be as bad as costly as you think if you look at that figure that I have. What you have to do is kind of get a passing lane, which wouldn't require, a full width widening in the middle of the road and all that. I don't know if you're following me, but you might be able to add some full width in the middle between the drives that are on this picture, and then be able to add a little bit to taper on each end, but maybe not. You might not need to. Passing lane, if you remember, see the difference between a passing lane and a center lane for left turns is that a center lane for left turns kind of takes a two-lane road and splits it evenly, and it's in the middle. But that, in order to get to that, you are required to go, say in this case, to the right. If you go to the right, that requires a much longer taper and a lot more pavement, and you have to fool around with both sides of the road. Same kind of tapers. It's a non-elective maneuver, right? It's a required maneuver. So that taper and the design and everything has to be bigger and more costly. Passing lane is an elective maneuver. In this case, though, you'd be able to set it up. Looks like you'd be able to set it up relatively inexpensively. So I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm not throwing your idea out because that's kind of the first thing I want to put on the table. You're still going to see some backups out there, but they're not going to be like you see them today. They're going to be better. You don't have traffic conflicts. You have one-way movements. So you also have, do you have this drawing?
It's right on the back of it.
Yeah, that's close.
Just a blow off the figure what you have.
Okay, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
this is the design, this is the side of the ICI, right?
Correct, this is their concept.
Yeah.
Put onto the actual survey with actual dimensions.
Yeah, so we could figure out a lot of things that are necessary to help make decisions on this. But you notice that the drive aisles, the parking aisles are one way. I think you have to keep them one way. You don't want parents going, you just don't want that. You want them to go one way. So, but you also have space in that grassy area out in front where you could expand and change the configuration of this a little bit to get more parking if you thought you wanted to. That's another option, but the bus lane where if you notice along the west edge of the parking lot, the sidewalk is extended all the way down, all the way around. So the buses could even be further down there, and you would have all that curb space to be able to drop your kids off and or pick them up. If you can pick them up, then we can all agree that there's a process we can be comfortable with. That's going to alleviate the congestion as well. So I think it's not beautiful. It's not the panacea, but it is a good retrofit of the problems that we saw and we heard about from the principal. So if I was writing the check, I think there's good benefit here. Maybe there's a possibility of talking to the road commission, asking if there's a participation that they could help you with on that widening out on the road out there. I doubt it, but it's worth trying. And really understanding what that widening is, I think is a good idea too, because if you can set it up as a passing lane, shouldn't cost too much. Or comparatively. Let me think.
Can I just say something like that? So I've been out there with Bill Renner and I both park cars, trying to get them off the streets. And just for an example, if you got 100 spots and we got 150 cars, we added 20 more spaces, we got 30 more cars. If there's no parking spaces in the afternoon, like Lucia said, you won't get them off the street. There's nowhere for them to go. If we don't have more spots, I think we're still gonna have traffic out on the road, of people trying to pull on the grass, because they don't have anywhere to go. They can't, there's no circle to pull around, I mean, you pull in the parking lot, go right back out to the road.
Scott, to that end, is there a number, you know?
Well, it's different on different days, because sometimes parents are late, they come a little late, some days, everybody's there on time, and there's nowhere to park.
I just,
So I
as you
mean,
did,
if it's possible to add more spaces like you said up front.
I did some quick math, and you could add 40 to 50 spaces, but my question is back again, you know, is 40 or 50 enough? And
Well-
maybe it's not.
What I was thinking though is that the pickup, which I know is always usually the biggest demand on space, would be improved if some of the kids could get picked up at the curb and traffic could be moving along. And that would kind of reduce the need for parking spaces out in the parking lot. So I'm not sure if we have a good number. We did ask about that, but it varies from day to day. If it's cold out, they don't want Junior to get, there's issues with all that.
So towards the end of the year, that's what Bill changed to. Bill changed to having buses on the inside, or they were in the other lot, but parents would just pull up there to the curb and pick the kids up.
Yeah.
First, at the beginning of the year, he wasn't allowing that. Towards the end of the year, when traffic got so bad, he was just allowing them to pull up on the curb. Currently, under the current
Yeah.
configuration.
In the current configuration, can the parents park in the bus loop?
Yeah, I'm talking about
No,
that.
parents won't.
Yeah.
Okay.
40 or 50 spaces.
So you're adding a little bit.
But it adds-
I don't know if that's.
Yeah, so there's like 40 space. I mean, granted, your staff still has to park somewhere as well.
I guess the problem with that is, in my head, is we are now literally creating an environment to get the buses away from the cars at one building. That would be, Scranton. We did the same thing here 4 years ago. And all of a sudden, now, hell with that idea, this works better, so let's put them back next to the bus. It's a problem for me, because we spent a lot of money, and we're still gonna spend a lot of money at another building to do the same thing. But just here, I don't know. It's a tough, there's no doubt about it.
Let me ask you another question. As far as I understood, when the buses are all loaded, all the kids are on the bus, they all leave at the same time.
Correct.
So, to me, that's the process. I mean, that's accepted practice all over the country. That's a good way to do it. That's the best way to do it. If you were to put them someplace else and have, I don't know, you could come up with bus exclusive, but it's really not, by the time all the buses get loaded and they're all ready to go, a lot of the kids and cars have already loaded and left too. So it's not really I don't see it as being as catastrophic as maybe you think it is. That's all.
Does the staff park in that parking lot too?
The one with the buses, the current one to the
west.
to the left on your chart. Yep,
Yeah, that's
that's where
what
staff park.
they use.
So is there anywhere else that the staff could park
That's a
anywhere?
good thinking.
They definitely park both
Yeah,
ways.
Yeah.
And I think the recommendation was that for them to go to all the way to the other side.
If you look at this one,
It's on the back side of that one.
This is the one I
right,
have.
everything to the right, as you come in, the driveway, they're thinking about parking in that area to the right
For the
for the
staff,
staff.
the area that we're gonna repay. Is that right? Anybody?
That was in the original bond
That's in the original one.
to.
Yeah,
That's the area we're talking about.
And
biggest
the
parking lot.
expanded area that you guys have recently put down buildings in, that snow fenced area.
Oh, I haven't seen that, I guess.
Okay.
So what about the buses going in that? Is there enough room for buses to go in that parking lot?
To the far.
I didn't really like
To the
that.
far right?
No,
No, they went the,
No.
Yeah, it's hard for them to maneuver. I mean, down at the end of this driveway, let's see, over here.
On the west side.
Yeah, we'll carry it all the way down where you see the sidewalk on the outside? That's where there's all kinds of elementary schools that do that same thing. That's all. I'm just throwing that out there. Now, the idea of separating them, that's kind of what you're doing to the extent that they need to be. This, which was originally done on this drawing, pretty elaborate. I'm not sure that you really need to be done to that extent. I don't know. I don't know what prompted that.
So what about the idea of angled parking? I mean, is that, you said that that's,
Perpendicular parking, you mean?
well, I think you said angled parking, is that?
Yeah, because we're doing it, so angled parking is better for one-way aisles because it forces you to travel in the correct direction. So when you back out of the space,
But it cuts down on parking spaces.
the number of, you lose parking spaces due to the inefficiency.
Yeah, you might, I don't know, we could probably tell you what it would be for, but you don't really want people going the wrong way. You don't want people fighting their way back to get out to the east driveway because they're not paying attention.
So it channels you in the direction that you're supposed to go in. And they're easier to get in and out of.
but these are both going in the same direction.
Well, that was just a
I mean,
concept.
are you thinking that or?
No,
Okay.
we're not. No, we're thinking this on the drawing on the back.
So then if somebody is down here, they have to go all the way like this to get out.
Correct, yeah, you gotta
Yes.
recirculate back through the
And
lot.
They're gonna find a shortcut.
That, I would say, as, from a parent perspective, that's gonna cause all kinds of nightmares.
People do the wrong thing.
Yes.
They're gonna try to find a shortcut.
So the aisleway that's going east,
Mhm.
somehow or another is not an acceptable thing.
Right, from my perspective, having both of those one-way aisles go the same way, so
We've-
that everybody exits
We
from
looked
one
at that,
side.
but if you go down the aisle and there's no space, you have to exit onto Spencer Road and
That's
come
true.
back in the parking lot in order to find another space.
That's true.
Which is, again, is gonna encourage you to go the wrong way.
Do the wrong thing.
Yep.
Well,
And that was
maybe if you give us that assignment and say we don't like that, we'll figure it out. But I think we are trying to retrofit a site, and we are trying to optimize the best we can. We're not gonna fool around with the building or anything like that. But there may be I don't know if I'm loaded with a lot of other ideas or not, but if we were to expand the parking lot into the grassy area a little bit, add more spaces, somehow or another, maybe that comes up with a rerouting, but I'm not sure.
What does it take to get it like a traffic light? Is
Pardon
that A traffic light? I don't know, I'm just throwing ideas out there, is that?
that's just appear in the middle of the night, who knows how it got there.
I don't-
Well, if you want to go through that, I can talk about that. I don't know.
I don't know, this is.
Well-
No, it's still, I mean, it's still gonna leave us with the parking problem.
I think the change, we have to look at the scope and the change of use. You look at how did things change? What has changed? What put us in this position and why are we modifying? What's going on? So as my view of this thing, it's an absolute train wreck every time I go through there. And when their cars were stuck in the ditches and the mom was down with their Jeep in the mud hole during last year, and I watched the whole thing happen. So we have a change in use here. This place wasn't like that. I've lived out there. I drove by that school every day for 20 years. So in these last several years, be it 3 to 5, whatever it's been, changing the tab and the number on the student, or however it's changed the operation of this thing. It was obviously designed for the intent when it was designed. The people who designed it were pretty bright. These schools are well built. So the change in use, how do you accommodate this change in use and how I heard you brought it up a couple of times about the number and how they get to the car and how long it takes.
Mhm.
So we've changed ourselves and backed ourselves into a corner. So these lots aren't working. And not just here.
Oh, you're not the only school district that has this
Yeah, I
problem.
know.
You
So it's
know.
not just for us.
No, the number of cars in the parking lot at every school has increased.
I think
Yeah.
more
Parents
parents
are
are dropping
just-
their kids off.
Well, sure
these
they
days.
are.
No one's riding the
Well,
bus.
Well, maybe
Right,
they're gonna
nobody
have
rides
to
the
stop
bus.
at the carpool lot and pick up the bus.
When I think-
Okay,
Can I-
I'm
Can I
not
ask
kidding,
one quick
because
question from Scott over here, just to pick up where Mr. Conley was at.
Yep.
Since we expanded, we put gravel down to expand and create a whole bunch more parking spots over there. Has that changed? I know that people are no longer driving on the grass,
that's stuck
and
in the mud.
parking on the grass.
Under the tree.
No, I know there's an issue with where it's at, but by adding those additional 20 or 30 spots, has it,
It's got everybody off the street.
it got everybody off the streets by adding 20 to
Oh, there
30
you go.
extra
So
spots?
that
So
was a change.
just asking that.
And this, I mean, if this plan adds 20 or 30 spots, then it may actually work.
Do something.
Well, it also increases the efficiency. That's the other part of that. So there's not gonna be, I think the demand for parking spaces is gonna go down with increased efficiency.
Question I would have is, you have a budget now, and you were just talking about going into the grassy area and adding some more to assure that you know, I'm gonna say, I'll go low, I'll say you have 30 spaces, maybe 40. But that's gonna add dollars to that $1 million to go 1.4.
This is what you.
You know, is that,
Yeah,
This is
you
what
wanna
we
go down
priced
that
this
road?
year.
Now that,
yeah.
This is what we
Again,
priced this.
I haven't heard the
Oh,
top
He's
set number,
adding more road.
but it adds 30 or
Oh,
40 spaces, should that be?
yeah.
But I still think that,
I thought you were talking.
I mean, getting back to the point about in the afternoons, the pickup at the curb, I mean, that is, that, if you look at the amount of linear feet of curb, what would be the proposed added curb space, there has to be an additional 25 vehicles that could park along the curb for the pickup in the afternoon. And, I mean, you could potentially look at, say, like operationally, like the kindergarten students, like designate a grade, like that would, the kindergarten student parents pick up at the curb. The other grades would then park, or whatever, I mean, some,
If I could say, I mean, before we wanted to entertain something like that, I would really like the opinions of our safety officers about that, because congregating your vulnerable students in the front of the building as the cars are coming through is a recipe for all kinds of challenges. And I'm not thinking of Johnny running out into the street because somebody wasn't watching him fast enough. I'm talking about other things that adults do when there are easy targets. And that's why you moved to number systems in elementary schoolers staying in their building until the assigned person who has authority to come get them has a
well, I'm
number.
not suggesting we vacate that process. What I'm saying is from
We have to accommodate it, really.
like a temporary parking scenario that, I'm not saying that the kids, I mean, before parents, you pick whatever you
No,
want.
but I mean, like, those types of ideas are great and we've got to work at them, but I think we would have to get not just a traffic opinion on whether that helps increase the efficiency of the traffic flow, but I'm talking about police officers and fire safety officers about whether those are good choices too.
Yeah.
So, if I could just jump in on this, I know that our folks are gonna need direction. This team up here, our design team and our construction team. So I think you really have two different directions. You have one where you stay with the general concept of how it is now, and I think you make additional parking permanent. However that needs to be with, septic fields and whatnot, but you have the existing, but add more parking spots. Or I think the only other option is to go with some version of what Mr. Labadie is talking about here, and also adding parking spots. So I think there's really only two directions. And so maybe like narrowing in on that, like what are the questions that they can answer that would help to steer them from the board perspective?
If I may, so the situation with the septics, with the temporary frame, we're on top of it, and a portion of it. So how do you, I mean, to me, I'm in the building world, sounds to me like you need to move the septic or dig it deeper and make it so you can park.
Go to a different spot, like you said up front, maybe there's a possibility of going have it to yourself up front towards the road.
So get them off of there and go parking in the front.
Infill into the front.
But you still got some
Is
there.
this the grass area down here?
Yeah, it's not all a septic system, it's just, what's that? It's just, yeah, right where the white is.
Yeah.
And again, my quick max says about 40 spaces.
So either way.
Oh, Andrew has, he's more.
Go south.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not gonna gain a full row of spaces,
Well, that's not good.
but yeah, you're gonna gain some.
I just real quick, wanted to talk about the signal idea. There are such things as school signals, but it's for crossing. And signals go in based on warrants that are published in this book that's put together by MDOT, Federal Highway, and the state police of every state. So everybody has this book called, in this case, the Michigan Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And in that book, and it's big, there's all kinds of things about standardized traffic control devices. How do you warrant a stop sign? How do you warrant yield signs? What pavement markings are supposed to look like? What color they are? How wide they are? All that stuff. What the letters are supposed to be. But they also have things in there for warrants for traffic signals. And there's a number of them. And in this case, you would have to have a traffic demand that would be probably, I want to say maybe triple, but I could be wrong about, of what you might need to warrant the thing. But sometimes traffic signals they don't help you. They put delays on the outbound too, but they're regular, right? And they assign right away. So that's kind of a cool thing, but you're gonna end up with having to give so much green time to the major roads, you won't get enough time that you might get with regular gaps in traffic. To improve this though, maybe the idea would everybody has to make a right turn, or everybody has to make a right turn in and a right turn out. It's the one-way flow. It's gonna make it safer, it's gonna make it more efficient, but it's probably gonna cause some of these people to drive through somebody else's neighborhood or something else. Or creates a high demand left turn someplace so people wanna come back. That's kind of crazy thing. So the idea would be that we're trying to take away a lot of the obstacles for inefficiency, at the same time, making it safer because it's one way and it gets rid of the congestion to some extent. But it's not 100%. I don't know if you can make it 100%. Maybe if you started over with a brand new clean slate and you could do something. Yeah,
Further back.
yeah, you move the school back. I worked on one in Bloomfield where the high school during construction for 3 years, we took the traffic all the way around behind the school.
Right.
And it worked
Ken
great.
said that actually.
Even
He
had a
brought that
traffic
up.
signal, which worked great too, but
He actually, Ken Stahl said that. He said he's seen them or designed where they're out, they go behind, right, Ken?
That's on yeah, there's a design that comes back around, that's the multi.
Yeah, but the idea.
design That comes back around.
But the idea though, it could,
It just puts more cars in a lane off the road.
Right.
get some,
Um,
I think I need to make them all carpool.
How does the one at the
Tell
high
parents
school
like
work? I mean, when we have football games, they can control that light, right? And they get a whole bunch of cars out real quick, then they give traffic some time, then they do that again. It does help, there's no doubt about it, you'd be sitting there half the night.
Yeah, I mean, we have law enforcement,
Right.
traffic after the game.
Right.
You're not gonna get a light there. I mean,
no, the
Culver,
signal's not gonna go there,
Spencer,
and it's not
you know,
even a good
for like
idea.
40 years,
Yeah.
and it's
Um,
blinking lights.
If I were to suggest anything on this, I think one, to kind of address the concerns that you're seeing out there now with the passing lane is a good idea, if we can figure out how to have that happen. So maybe you need to know about that.
When you say passing lane, you're talking encroaching on the property with another lane?
No.
So widening
Explain to me
Spencer,
what you're talking
No, it'd be, if you look at this.
widening the south half of Spencer Road.
Yeah. If you look, it would be on the south side,
So you're encroaching on that side? is what you're saying.
well, not really encroaching, it's right away.
Right away.
It's in the right of way.
Assuming there's enough space.
Isn't it kind of in the ditch though, right away too? You almost
There
have
is a
to-
ditch there.
There is a ditch.
Almost the entrance to the neighborhood right there.
Say again?
It's almost the entrance to that neighborhood. too.
Yeah, so if
It's
you
the
look at this.
deceleration
map,
lane to go into Greenfield Point.
on the south side of Spencer Road across from the East Drive,
There's a decel lane.
there's already a decel lane. You can see those dash lines.
Yes, I see it. So you,
And so it would just be extending that all the way back to the other driveway.
that would be our cost though, right?
Correct.
Instead of
Maybe.
just
Well,
getting the county to do it.
let's assume that's the case. Although there's different funding pots out there, and sometimes road commissions want to be
Good
I
name.
think we've asked
just
for this.
sociable.
We asked for a left turn lane and they said you'd have to pay for it.
That you would have to do. But this might be cheap enough to where they could help cooperate. If nothing else, they might have to cooperate just to allow you to do it. So we
So
should,
by percentage, what would that do for us? What are you thinking? What's your vision on that?
It keeps eastbound travel.
Let him talk though for a second.
it
Let's see
keeps
what
eastbound moving, allows people not to get congested. It would probably allow the west driveway to work a little better. Because they would have some gap, it wouldn't be plugged
Something
up.
like that needs to change in this system. There's got to be a change that makes a significant impact.
Well, right now, these two-way driveways that you have are getting in their own way.
Right.
You can't, so it's gonna be a lot better just by having a one-way loop. So that goes without saying. My point though is it could work better if you did have that passing lane. And it doesn't look like it's gonna be that much to really do it.
So it's a permanent fix, not a putting gravel on top of our septic field to park on it fix.
Right,
Well,
right.
But I think that addresses, like a passing lane like that would help ensure that the people that are not trying to get into the school can get around the traffic snarl that is the school. So it helps
It'd
the.
be
it's
improve
gonna
safety
move a
lot.
lot. I can see it
improves the
working.
safety and it helps the other folks in the neighborhood of the school.
If you say
But we
safety, I'll vote for it.
But we still have to address
Usually.
the parking, because I know that there are a lot of folks that chose to drive their children to and from school during the pandemic that otherwise might have used the bus. But I also know, especially, out at Spencer, we had a lot of folks that drive their kids just because, especially in the morning, because otherwise their kids are on a bus to Maltby all the way across town.
Don't these
And-
transfer buses still, it's from Spencer? We used to do transfers. They still,
They go to Maltby and then they come back to
they come
Spencer.
back. That's,
So, that's a 45 minutes that your kid is sitting on a bus.
in the old days,
And
in the
you
old
could
days, they
drive.
went from Spencer to there. So they
Right.
changed that.
So we've got a growing population on that side of town and they have shifted to driving their kids to school and home from school. And so we've got that parking. So I think we have to do, I don't think that the passing lane solves the parking problem. The passing lane is a great idea. I think we also have to solve the parking problem.
So we don't have a traffic flow problem out at Spencer. What we have is, there's no traffic flow going on. People are pulling into the parking lot. And nobody can go anywhere till that bell rings. So people are parking on the street till the bell rings. So it's not a traffic flow. They're just coming in and there's nowhere for them to go. Nobody can leave. Once that bell rings, people start leaving and traffic starts flowing on them. It's good. We just don't have people to place the parking.
So you're saying our current configuration works if there was enough parking?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think his suggestion was a big long loop would even work better. But I still think we're gonna have a parking issue. I mean, it's before the bell rings, that's the issue. When you stand out in the parking lot, you watch every bill go, turn spots on there.
Oh, spoiled kids.
We have no place to put people until the bell rings. There's nobody can leave till the bell
They're
rings.
spoiled.
So
We need
is
to put
the
those kids in the
is the
buses.
solution here,
Unload them, plug the buses up.
two things occur. You head in this design direction because it maximizes the amount of drop-off in front that you can park at if they allow, school allows it. And then we explore additional parking in the front. And that's about as much parking as you're gonna get on the site without going into the ball fields up in here. I mean, literally creating a whole new lot. That's the maximum you can get at that point. I don't know how else you get any more parking. Doing both of those.
Real problem with all of those ideas are you spend that kind of money, it's like building a high school, then all of a sudden your population stops or drops. Then you just wasted a bunch of money, you're closing.
Got a bunch of asphalt.
Same thing
That's
with the
true.
parking lot. We spent $2 million on this thing and then all of a sudden this changes. And you've
They
spent
start trusting
nothing.
buses. They like
Yeah.
buses. Or you put, security guards on buses.
Is the board feeling like you're getting to the spot where you have direction on this? What else do you need in order to get to the spot of making decisions?
I guess I personally say, let's look at the passing lane one condition. That's my personal.
I wanna see more, how we can handle parking.
Yeah.
I wanna see getting them.
Stay under the, I say stay under the, stay under the bond budget, but we said there's surplus money and make more parking. That's my initial take on it.
So
And
keep
look at
the
that.
same configuration, but find a way to
I'll tell
get.
you, I don't get it. Like I said, I still haven't got a message here. How this is gonna work. But I like the idea of making improvements. So I guess maybe if we did the top 5 improvements and you listed them, and this will give you the most improvement, then the next one, the next one, the next one, and we look at it by budget, each one of those improvements, and then take that one, this one, and then throw the other ones out. I mean, there's gotta be some method like that on this. This is, obviously you can improve on what we've got, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so maybe we better look at the hierarchy of the improvements, because there's 10 things we could do, but we can't do all 10. But if we could do the top 2 or 3, which you proposed this one, but it didn't include the decel or the turn lane, maybe we look at that. And again, like whoever was talking about what's backed up in the Spencer, Scott was about, it's not really it's backed up in our parking lot, not the road itself, not the roadway causing the problem. But maybe all of the above would fix it. Well, I don't know, though. It's this whole change in the trend. And like I said, I'd like the kids could get out of their cars and get in the buses and wait in the buses till school opened. I mean, but that's not going to happen.
No, Scranton, they send them to the football field during the summer and they bring them into the gymnasium and the
Right.
cafeteria during the winter.
Right.
Do we not have that going on here?
No.
Is it something that would help? Okay, drop your kids off, they're gonna go inside the gym right now and play until it's school time. Is that a possibility?
The challenge is there's a big difference between a middle school student and elementary school students. And, a lot of, well, when you start thinking about junior kindergartners, we're talking about 4 and 5-year-olds. And, I think that drop off's very different there than at a secondary school. So, and I think that parents want to be part of that process. And frankly, I would have, that's what we did. We walked our daughter up and part of the day and drop her, that's just the way things are today. With the way the world's changed, I don't think people are comfortable just sending little ones. I mean, it was totally different when I was a kid, but the world's changed. And people like to see that their kids got to where they went to and they bring them to teachers. I mean, that's like a common thing at elementary school, so.
Yeah, and it still doesn't even address the pickup. I mean, the pickup is a whole.
Yeah,
another
Pickup
issue.
is more challenging
Right.
because of the timing and things. And drop off is easier, with your 3rd and 4th graders. You drop them off the door and they can run in. That works. But at the end of the
I like Mr.
day,
Conley's idea. I think if we've got some options
That's impossible.
to look at, the passing lane, the additional parking, there's a couple of options for additional parking. And, give, what would be the cost for those individual items?
so more information is needed is what you're saying.
Hierarchy, I think it just needs to be a tiered system. And I
So
think Roger's
a question mark back to the design and construction team is there was, how much time do you have before we need to move on this?
Well, honestly, if you're looking at doing anything in the parking lot, it's gonna be next summer.
It's next summer
It's
anyway.
next summer. You're not gonna be able to get anything done this summer.
So when does the board need to make a decision about?
Is that-
But we still have some timelines that have to be met. And that includes design.
Yeah, we would need, I would say if you want to get, the best thing is you want to have the design done by October, beginning by mid-October, so that we can bid it out before the end of the year. So.
And then Scott, that's Scott and Andy, that's quite a bit of time, right?
Well, on the calendar it is. If we come back with 10 different options. and
We're
you
not
pick
talking
them
about
from-
10 different options.
We're talking about the hierarchy.
You just said there's only a couple, like
I mean,
adding another
there's
Only
row.
a couple that we can.
so there's two
Here's
major
another row.
options. There's, do you rework the parking lot or not?
Mhm.
So that's the first big decision to make.
Well, you already had that priced out and you already have, a ballpark there. So
Right.
now the next phase is what would it be to add a
So we're
row of
going
parking?
for- So are we doing like, what does it cost to get additional parking on the original concept? without
Yeah.
combining
Yes.
two lots,
Yes.
as well as what's it cost to do additional parking in this one?
And the
I think
passing
that
lane
you're-
thing, we can approach the road commission and ask, yeah, let's be my neighbor, so, I mean, it just, and to go back to your point, they may throw the cost in just because they're here, as many complaints as you do with the school as they do from the neighbors in the neighborhood, so maybe that's a conversation we can have. We're not sure we can get you a price on it, but it's a conversation that could be had.
I can get you.
Okay.
But your row of parking is going to be the same whether you redesign it or not. There's not that much space. It's not like you're going to be able to go, if there's that big hole. It's not like you're going to park on the west end
Right.
over here
No.
anyway. You were talking, Scott, I think you were
I'm
saying
talking the white box.
the row like right here, like
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
front
aisle
here,
right there.
closer to the road,
Well,
or,
you could do that with the existing concept too and make.
well, that's
We can do
what,
it
that's
with-
what we were saying.
Yeah.
It would be the
Yeah.
same idea, whether it was the new concept or other. How much, like, what's it gonna look like to have another row of parking? That's the second thing. And then what would it look like to have the passing lane?
Right, but
So those
Ken
three
said too,
things.
though, the
The only
development,
challenge that I can see, and I'm gonna speak kind of what Mike brought up, is the fact that if you keep with the concept you have now, you still have a cluster because you got two ins and outs on each side. That needs to change in order to make things work. So that's, even
Let's
though you've got the
restripe the
existing
parking lot.
layout,
But if the parents only use, I think what Scott was saying is that the parents only park in the east one. So the only thing that should be going out of the west driveway when the parents are there are the 6 buses.
but in the existing layout, I guess our challenge would be, can we use that as an out and use this as an in? Even leave the buses, leave that configuration parking there. Can they come break through and go out this way? No? Okay.
I mean,
Okay, so your work,
All right.
so your work is additional parking and passing lane, I think are the two big
On both
things that are
options.
questionable.
and line them all out what each one is cost-wise,
Yeah.
and
Ballpark, this kind of thing. So, okay.
3 or 4.
I got those two, and then they said prioritize improvements based on effectiveness of solving the problem.
Correct.
Well,
Which one would give you the biggest bang for the least bang? Is I think what he's getting
And-
at, right?
one-way
Or if
loop,
you're
One that
looking-
most cost effective and gives us-
one-way loop is the way to
Yeah.
go.
Or if you're looking at how many parking spots do we get,
Well,
this
because
plan gets me 20 extra parking spots at an extra million, this plan gets me 50 extra parking spots,
Right.
but it's 5 million.
and so if you look at
That's what I wanna know.
So looking at the existing and I'm understanding how the site works correctly, if the parents only use the east lot, that's the only place that they can come in and park. There's about 118 spaces in that lot right now. If you had 40, you said you have 40 or 50 extra cars that are parking on the grass, parking all over the place. So the traffic report showed that there was about 172 into that lot during the afternoon pickup drop-off time.
Mhm.
So if that's your average, that's the number that we should be shooting for. So how-
Except,
So how do we get there?
go
Do we
ahead.
know how many teachers park there? How many cars or teachers that just get parked before anybody gets there and they stay there all day?
They park in by the bus, don't they?
Most of them.
Most of
Today they
them,
park
it's
on
gonna
the
be
bus.
your people that come late. There's lunch staff and people that do come during the day, there's plenty of parking.
Right.
It's only,
No, what
yeah.
I'm getting at is, can we put them in this extra space of parking, which then opens up
the whole,
more parking inside
To the
the
east.
lot?
Well,
In other words, take those, they've gotta
Well, that would be
be
the,
30 to 50 cars that are teachers and staff, right?
I'll-
Move them to the separate spot and then use the whole parking lot for just parents.
what was that, Scott?
some schools do that, some schools do that.
Well, we could do that, but put that on, if you could, add that to your list on how you think that would help traffic flow. It's a good idea. What I wanted to throw in too is, we're looking out the windshield as well. COVID is in the rearview mirror at the level that it was in this, isolation and bus problems and all the different things. So all goes well. So are we setting numbers that aren't realistic?
I don't
Is it-
disagree with you, but we've also created a world where a lot of people.
Well,
work
I was
from home
listening,
now.
I was listening to
therefore
what
that
Alicia
changes
said.
the way they-
I'm okay with that, but maybe as we roll out in the fall, when we look at what our actual pattern becomes with maybe some minor changes on flow or something, see where we wind up. So, because we can't do anything anyway. So there could be an opportunity to make some engineering changes to what we have existing and look at this turn lane or decel or off lane, and maybe that could be just different things. So that list is going to be very important. I think we should make improvements, but maybe, again, let's look out the
So
windshield.
staff parking area not exclusive.
I would make it
Is that the right-
exclusive.
That's what you're getting at?
I think that's a good idea.
Maybe that front area of grass just
And that-
becomes the staff if they'll fit there.
Or off to
And
the,
that way they're
or to the
not-
east.
By the way, that's gonna be
The east parking, well, the east parking would be better because they get
Well,
right,
There's this, the spaces to the east.
the east is where they should park with
Yeah,
staff.
if you combine.
And they
the
get
two,
right in the
it's all
sidewalk
parking.
and walk into school.
Yeah. They, I mean, we could,
Right.
could probably make this part a little bit more desirable and have parents think about doing that.
Fair enough.
So more homework to be done here. We'll have to come back and talk. Spencer, do you want to, should we talk
Yeah,
multi a
so,
little bit?
Let's talk about it.
yeah, so let's transition to multi.
So really the question is, from the board side, and they've done initial work here on this about, could they do an access road? What would you be giving up? Obviously, you have the drawings that are here. Mr. Lavity had, and team had the first one. It's a general concept. Mr. Lavity was really clear that this is initial. If you want to really we have to do further study of this if we're gonna, if you're gonna go this route, but general concept, to get them up to that main lot. There's some pictures there. There's an initial drawing. One of the big question marks, when you look at this, is about the athletic fields. And Mr. Thompson, you and I had that conversation. I'm gonna put you on the spot on it a little bit, but you've seen some of those. How many fields are there, just so that we know in that area?
Yeah, so
Just to summarize.
basically we have about 2 rectangular fields left. One, on the south end is shrunk due to the field house being built, so the width of that's a little bit less. So originally you had, for all intents and purposes, 3 rectangles at that property. The indoor practice facility now taking one of those rectangles away and leaving you 2, the one on the south end, a little bit bigger. So your user groups are Brighton Youth Football and Cheer, Brighton Youth Lacrosse programs. So it becomes a choice between, where you're putting the road in and or then what the cause and effect on those user groups will be. Because no matter where you put it, even if you put it as far west as you can along that tree line, you're gonna chew up space. So
John, you and I talked about this. I called you next quickly. I said, what can we do to move those fields? We talked about that area behind the baseball stadium or field at the high school. I think there's basically the same amount of space if they went opposite. I walked in, you lose that little baseball diamond in the back that kind of is a neighborhood diamond. If you will.
yeah,
And it's grass. It's not, this isn't turf.
yeah, you won't have as much space as you have at Multi right now, Ken. And the only reason I know that is because originally
We were
we were looking to put the indoor practice facility on the site at the high school, and you couldn't fit a full field in there.
Okay.
So from where the existing turf field all the way to the back of that backstop, that's not a full 100 yards.
Are these full right now?
You've got one, and you've got a second one, but that's gonna shrink width-wise because of the.
But they are full field right now.
Yeah, you're pretty close. And for youth practices, it's just basically spacing out the groups.
Right.
Until you get to, your 7th and 8th grade age type of kids, they need a little bit more of a legit regulation type of, rectangle. All your other kids, those small, young age groups, they're just putting in pods, so to speak. But yeah, you could develop that in the back of the high school. Right now we've relocated those groups over to Scranton. And I know obviously we're looking at, putting that road in over there, which we think we can do without impacting those fields.
Yeah.
Those fields at some juncture are gonna have to get renovated. It's all clay over at that property. There's no drainage. So they pretty much, in the 2 years we put them over there because of construction, or actually 1 year, they'll be there again next year, but they pretty much have chewed all those fields up.
Do we have an opportunity to put another field behind those baseball diamonds in Scranton? Because our driveway is turning way before it gets there.
Yeah, your train is,
So it's probably-
yeah, I just add, your train is
Exploring
here.
options.
So like, if I'm walking from Scranton up to Lee Road.
Yeah.
It's an uphill walk.
It's all,
Right.
yeah.
No joke.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, there's,
Both ways.
So, I mean, you've got the
We're down to-
softball
we're
field
down
up
to 8
on this
minutes. We got-
here, and then you've got the baseball field up on that here.
Scranton's another program.
yeah, there's
You'd
like,
have to move a ton of dirt.
yeah, there's like 17 feet of difference or something between the softball field and the road.
So there, doing the multi-road, there's gonna be sacrifice on the fielding side. So,
Yeah.
so setting that aside, that was like the big thing here. I guess the real question is, talking to Mr. Labadie about some of the design here, and I guess what they're looking for is, do we continue this work, continue down this pathway? Is this something that you want to do now, or is this something you want to delay and look at later? So that's the real question for the
My
board.
question about this is, we also have parking issues here. I feel like to put in this road without, I mean, I don't know how we're talking about parking issues and how this impacts the parent pickup and things going on, the backup on Bauer Road. How will this impact that?
Okay. First of all, the principles and our observation was that it's more of a congestion issue. It's not a lack of parking spaces issue. So people are having a hard time getting in and out, all that kind of thing. So we never made even an effort to try and figure out how to expand the parking. We're trying to get rid of the congestion.
There's enough parking spots there. There's plenty of spots.
We're trying to get rid of the congestion. And it turns out that, and one of the things that Matt told us in the beginning, somebody was throwing out the idea of a new access point out on Brighton Road. So that was one of the things he just wanted me to think about. Well, we looked at it, boy, it makes great sense. It's a great idea. And if you want to have that place get better, let's figure out how to do that. From a traffic standpoint, it's amazing. So looking at these drawings that those the concepts are relatively straightforward, but they're kind of roads. I'm thinking driveway that wiggles around the building and stays close to the building. That's what I'm thinking. So we're still working on that. I don't know if everybody in this room agrees with me on that, especially on this side of the room, but we'll see how that goes. My thought is, you can make that work. You can fit the field house in. And
It's already there.
It's there.
It's
the
there.
road, this road, I like this road, this drive right there, wiggle that around in through there, and come in right there.
That field house is already built.
Pardon me?
That field house is already built. So we can't-
Well, I'm just saying, bring this in here like this.
Oh, I see.
Bring the road in like this. Don't go up here. You end up with all this extra space up here that you can still use. The impact of removing, there are a considerable number of cars, I think it's a couple hundred, maybe more, close to 300, that come here and make a turn to go in here. If they come in here and they go back that way, they're not here. I mean, the improvement to the operation of that intersection is incredible. So, and just think about that. They have to get back in, they gotta get in this craziness, get back out here to go that way. The other thing that when we looked at this, we said, hey, we don't know how many necessarily would wanna come here, but our thought was, and did you guys go through all this with the two loops?
We haven't discussed that.
Oh, okay, so.
No.
Does this drawing exist in your packet there?
Yes, it shows the 10 buses here. This one, that one?
Yeah, that one's a good one. Okay, so that has, I know this is a very odd thing, but without spending a ton of money on this can be kind of a cool setup. Because one, you like one-way operations for school pickup and drop off and all that stuff, right? So let's say the trouble we had with this was, where do we want to move this center aisle, this center island thing where the buses are? We want to move it maybe to figure out, to accommodate the demand from here and the demand from there. Create two loops One that drives up this way, loops back and goes back out your new driveway. And then another one that comes in this way, loops around, and goes back out that driveway. And pickup and drop off can happen on the island, the buses can be there, there's a lot of cool things, but you end up with two loops that don't even interfere with each other. And I don't know how you ended up with two schools being served by one lot, but that's okay. This might work out to be something that's pretty darn cool. And congestion down here gets a whole lot better at the intersection.
Okay, what are the, I've heard the build it and ask for forgiveness thing, but, what are the possibilities of getting the okay for that other?
Oh,
Slim it on?
I'm good, we'll get that.
Okay.
The road commission is gonna look at the improvement in the operation, it's called level of service. The reduction in delays and all that stuff, they're gonna look at that and say, where do I sign? It'll be good. They can't deny you that access either, by the way, because you have frontage on Brighton Road. So it's not a you have to go kiss their ring or take Mike Crane out for a retirement once again.
He's already retired.
I know you said, again, I said.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't have to do that. All you need to do is come up with a concept that works and have that lane, the driveway fit.
Yeah.
So you have sight distance covered and all that stuff, but it looks like a good idea. I was worried that we were gonna want it to be too close to where the bridge is down here, which is gonna make it too expensive. But we don't need to be way down there. I mean, we're just kind of ciphering here. It looks like that lane, that driveway is kind of like right there.
That's right on the back of that building.
Yeah, I would.
So, hey.
Well, maybe we can pitch it to them that we'll improve your level of services at this intersection if you give us money to build a passing lane at Spencer, right?
Like it.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Let's go see them.
Deal and deal, let's take them to dinner now.
Yeah, so I think I think this is, I mean, it's a fantastic idea to try and get that alternate access.
And you think there's a way to do this without losing all the athletic fields?
Well,
Yeah, I don't think you agree about that.
just ciphering that, yeah, I think maybe, but I'm the traffic guy. The reality is the devil's in the details once in a while.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
we'll see, but it looks like you could wiggle it. Remember, it doesn't have to have, it needs to be a driveway. People are supposed to drive there in a civil way, blah, blah, blah. So if it has to wiggle around a little bit, so what? It's not a problem, I don't think.
So, just a question, your preferred, because we have like 3 different routes. The one you prefer the most is the one.
There's a fourth route, which doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist on the
Yeah,
road.
No.
But,
What I'm thinking is this comes in,
300 grand.
comes along here, goes down here.
Question for the board, there's a ton, is continue down this pathway and get better drawings, all this kind of stuff. Do we continue down this pathway? Knowing that there could be some potential lost fields, things like that, continue to work on this, or, so I think that's the real question for today. I'm multi.
My personal opinion is keep working on it. I like what he's talking about. That, yeah, if you've got 2 loops, I mean, how can that not help you?
Except it's gonna cost $1 million.
And there might be some losses here, and we have to move some of those. I mean, this thing's been a problem forever as well.
Huh?
This is a full
Yeah,
field.
right. You can't build that road. That 350 was renovation and repair, right? It wasn't built a whole new road. So that was just put in the budget.
Is
where we
that
have place.
350 that's on there? So
That's just the road.
just a place.
That's an estimate just for the road, but keep in mind that does not include any improvements to the street as well if you had to pay for some of those.
Right.
So my point is, is the board willing to spend $500,000 on this?
Again, it's like a 30,000 foot level concept where it's an
Yeah,
alignment, the roadway is 12 feet wide, it's got 5 foot shoulders, and I graded down at a 6:1 to get some
Right.
sort of work.
Yeah, I think the question is, are you interested enough to at least further explore?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
What choice do you have? You just spent $10 million out
We'll keep doing
there.
And then are there any other options that, I mean, on paper, it just looks like it takes up different space, but it's a facility and
It's gonna take up a lot.
It is, I mean,
It's a dramatic
So-
difference to
So-
the things that we can do
It's gonna wipe out those
outside.
fields, some of them.
So they have,
Might be able to save one.
over here, they've drawn a fourth option that we're not seeing,
And
that
that,
they're all excited about over here, so
what's the fourth option?
Parachute the kids
It's
in.
keeping it tight to the.
it's keeping
athletic
it
field
tight to the
and
building and
Say again?
It's keeping it tight to the,
To the tree line?
no, to the.
So
But
the
that
building.
means, that means you've got a road all the way around your school, so you have to have the kids cross the road to go to the field to play during recess.
Or field
during,
days, or.
or
Well,
field
let's not
day,
forget,
or for
that is already a
sports, or
fire
for-
road, right? We
Like-
already have to, what is the distance around the building that we have to give them?
No,
It's
no,
not around,
That's
the-
just-
it's not around
that's
the, it's not around the,
it's just to the back of the building.
yeah, you would just pick up a little bit of the, you're only going in a couple, half the distance of the west side of the.
Oh, is
No,
this,
we're
so
talking
you're
about
saying about
circling
cutting back
the whole
into the
building
existing
with a
parking
road.
lot back
so,
there?
so why don't we let
I'm
them
not following.
do some more drawing?
Alright.
Cause this, I think this one's gonna take some more.
Alicia doesn't like that one.
I'm not totally sold on this either, so, I have my reservations, but yeah, I don't.
Hold on, what?
So some of the concerns are, what are the?
Road's too close to the
what are
building.
flaws-
The
fatal
new,
flaws
the
you
new
see?
program you had, Alicia, I can speak for a second, because I like doing that occasionally, very rarely. She doesn't like it so close the kids are gonna get run over when they walk across the street.
I also think that it's been very valuable for Mulvey to have fields for
Oh.
the kids to use during the
To
day.
go out.
And if there's a road between the kids and the fields, that changes the way you use them,
Well,
always.
I agree with that statement, but I think these roads are only pick up and drop off. It's not during the day.
Are you going to gate
We can
them
put a
so
gate
no
there.
one can get
Be
into
easy
them?
enough to do.
Absolutely.
Well,
I
I mean,
think
that's a
that
lot,
is,
that's a lot to
You
think
should.
about, I mean.
Yeah.
That's the
But
point,
that's-
I mean, these are the things that would be.
Which is,
Oh.
I mean, and that's the other thing
Well,
for
see, we're
me
having
is
discussion.
from a safety
Imagine that.
standpoint,
That's a good thing.
how do we secure our school buildings
Right.
if we've just added a road that circles the whole thing?
Right.
So
Makes sense.
let's,
Similar as the Scranton concept, we're not thinking we're using Scranton, this new road, all that.
Yeah, that's gonna be gated.
Gated
All right,
access as
I
well.
have a question, that I don't call it ever being discussed, are the Mulvey students going to be using the field house for recess activities or for PE?
why wouldn't they? It's
Well,
right
that's what I'm
there.
asking, I mean, it's.
Yeah,
So during the school day, I think there's more options than obviously once the school day ends.
Right,
So-
I'm talking about during the
But
school
we
day.
hadn't really talked about it, but.
Yeah. I'm talking during the school day to address the concern about are we losing areas for them to, you know, for activities?
Is that been out there? Is that, were we planning on letting the school use it the other day?
You know,
You've never had this
we're building it for
Physics
kids.
class.
Oh, I get it.
I mean, it's
I mean,
huge. During the day is not as, gonna be as busy.
yeah, no, I mean, we can schedule that.
Yeah.
I mean, just becomes.
Those people lunchtime block that.
Be a great place for recess.
Right, okay,
January.
right, January, it gives them more.
I hope so, yeah, I hope that's part of the plan,
Yeah.
otherwise.
Every other building's gonna want one now.
You're gonna need a tram. No, Alicia, you're gonna need to get a tram so you can go from every school to get to that building.
Monorail.
All right,
Monorail,
so
yeah, you got it.
Designed by our robotics and engineering.
Yes, consensus to move
Future,
forward?
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Good, we're going.
Keep going.
I have a question about, I mean, I would assume you wouldn't let just anybody in there. It's only a pickup and drop off. That's what I understood it to be. So the feasibility of wiggling it around the buildings looks pretty easy to me. Right? But there may be some issues with what the fire department says. I mean, they had to put in a fire road there. So I'm not sure how that, I don't know about the rules there. But I always thought, I was thinking when we were gonna suggest that, as we were gonna try to sort out not just that road, makes great idea if we can use it, but we're also trying to figure out the demand using that road, you know, in our two different loops. Does this stay where it is? Do you have to reconfigure this, or do you move it? I thought you had to move this over. You're gonna spend some money potentially on the parking lot too that you were not planning on doing. And I don't know about the use of that, of gating it related to the fire.
It's gated now for fire.
I don't think you really
So we-
need to
so we-
relocate that island.
Pardon?
I don't really think you need to relocate the island as long as you're not providing, you know, I think you're okay. Cause you're just gonna bring them in and it's gonna be a drop off more than anything. You're gonna be queuing a lot of cars up the road.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't think you really have to make the expense to move that over.
What's the worst could happen?
Right.
Well, I think at this point, I think there's a lot of what if and all those things. Let's work on the what if. Let's get all our ducks in a row and then come back to you with some more certainty, if that works.
All right.
I mean,
Okay. So that closes the discussion of those two items. The last item on the agenda was just a touch base on the project updates. And Bernie, you want to provide a brief overview?
Yeah, so just a couple things we're working on right now. We're doing the track resurfacing over at Scranton this week, and then moving to the high school next week. Miller, we're starting to pave that lot this week. So we got that divided up, and we worked out a logistics plan to make sure that building stays functional the whole time. Obviously, the indoor practice facility is going this week. They should be finishing up the roof. And they're starting on some of the interiors. They've been painting the beams inside, the columns and everything. So we're on track right now. So right now, the building should be done toward the end of August. But then we have to install the base and the track and the turf surface, and that'll be about another 6 weeks or so after. So you're looking at end of September, sometime in October, that it should be ready to be used. So.
Great.
And then, other than that, we're just waiting to start all the media center renovations on the 20th. So we worked with every school, the principals, the librarians. We are gonna start next week. We will start moving some of the books. We're gonna take everything in the media centers and either put them in the cafeterias or the libraries. The books go back, any of the furniture, whatever you guys wanna do with it, it'll be there. There's all of them are getting new furniture, so we're gonna move all the old furniture into one spot or in each building, and then you guys can figure out what you wanna do with the other furniture. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Okay. Any questions?
Will they be ready for fall? The media centers, will they be finished or are they going to be in process?
The media centers are all designed to be ready. We're pushing to have them all done for school to start, before school starts.
So those
So
are,
we have it all scheduled that way right now, and it seems like all the material is gonna be here and everything, and
so the furniture, the bookshelves, all the different things were,
I gotta check with, I don't order the furniture, so that'll be that
Tracy.
piece that we'll have to check on.
There were a few items on the furniture I know when they were ordered that were questionable. They just were already.
but we're going to be close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't anything that was gonna keep them from functioning, but it
Okay.
was,
Good.
there's certainly some items that are question marks right now.
Okay. Good. All right, good. All right, close the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here, Mr. Labry. Really appreciate it.
My wife said, God, get out of here.
Yeah.
Yep.